What I can say about accountability, according to me, because it is a word that has been diluted a lot, and people associate it when things, or rather taking responsibility when things go wrong. I'll use an example. Let's say when I want to achieve a goal, I know what it takes for me to get from a certain point, or rather from point A to point B, and I know what I have to do to get there. So for me to be able to realize you are not ready to outgrow where you are at the moment, and you'll find yourself maybe team members, rather, since there's no growth anymore, you've achieved whatever you wanted to achieve. People in your team maybe may start not feeling that
Accountability is one of those topics that we never learn more about. We know how important it is. We know that this is something that we need for us to be able to grow to the next level. But I would like to hear from you, Stella. What is accountability?
Thank you for asking me the question, Mohammed. And yes, I can say accountability is not spoken of that much. And what I can say about accountability, according to me, because it is a word that has been diluted a lot, and people associate it when things, or rather taking responsibility when things go wrong. But according to me, what I can say accountability is being able to see those patterns that led me to that particular situation. That is what I can say accountability is.
I hear the concept of personal accountability, being accountable to yourself and being accountable to others. What's the difference between being accountable to yourself and also being accountable to others?
So about being accountable to yourself is when you are not lying to yourself. You are true to yourself and being able to take responsibility of every action or consequences that happen in your life. I'll use an example. Let's say when I want to achieve a goal, I know what it takes for me to get from a certain point, or rather from point A to point B, and I know what I have to do to get there. So for me to be able to realize, rather being able to identify those patterns or habits that I have to work on to be able to achieve that goal, I can say that I am accountable to myself. And taking accountability for others it means I can use an example of a leader, somebody who understands what it takes for their own team to grow. So that is what I can differentiate between the two.
A lot of people have this misconception that accountability, you can only be accountable to someone else, only when someone is checkmating you. Because you said an example you would give is like a leader being accountable to their team. What about the flip side, where you have a goal and you have someone who you are accountable to? Why do we confuse that with being accountable to yourself, regardless of someone being there to man-mark you, to be like, okay, have you done this? Have you done that? What's the difference between the two?
Okay, being accountable to another person in this situation is where, if I use an example of having a mentor. Having a mentor is a situation where you are accountable to yourself, but at the same time, you are accountable for the other person. Because if this mentor is guiding you to achieve a certain goal, to be a better version of yourself, it means that even if the person is giving you certain rules to work with, certain goals to meet and timelines to, it has to start with you, within you, to be able to regulate, or rather have that nervous system regulation. For me, accountability is not only about, it is not a skill, it is more of a will. If you are able to regulate your mental health issues to work together with your physical strengths and weaknesses and all that, I can say you are accountable because you can see the patterns that you need to, the habits that you need to grow to be able to achieve a goal. So with that, I can use an example of having a mentor. You are accountable to yourself at the same time you're accountable to another person.
I want us to digest two things that you talked about. Earlier on, you talked about responsibility. But what's the difference between being someone who is responsible and being someone who is accountable? Because it can be easily misunderstood. Firstly, is there a difference between these two?
Yes, of course, there's the difference between responsibility and accountability. Being responsible is having that realizations of things that is happening around you, what you need to do. It's more of being aware, the awareness of each and everything that is happening around you. But accountability is a point where you understand that for you to change to happen, you have to take that action. You should be self-driven for you to be able to achieve that goal. But responsibility is more of being aware.
You talked about realization has to do with responsibility. Being responsible has to do with you realizing, okay, this is what I need to work on. While accountability is actually taking action. So can we say responsibility, being responsible and being accountable is like a coin? One is the head, one is the tail. So both of them go hand in hand. Can someone say they go hand in hand?
Yes, I can say they're interlinked, because for you to be accountable, it means you are responsible, or rather accepting that what is happening around you. So they are interlinked because the other leads to another. For you to say you are accountable, it means you have taken the responsibility of the actions happening around you.
Earlier on, you talked about accountability is not a skill. And I 100% agree with you on that. Accountability is not a skill. It's not something that you learn. It's more like an internal stuff. Because when you look at things that are inside, we are not readily aware of our biases, whether we lack that accountability. It's not something that we are aware of. How do we know our level of accountability? I am looking to improve myself, and you said it's not a skill. I can't just go out, read a book on accountability. How do I get to learn as a person? What's the level of accountability that I take?
We are able to learn the level of accountability that we have based on the results and the time that you take to achieve that result. We set goals each and every day, and we set the time frame that we need to achieve that goal. But if, let's say, each and every time you are not achieving that goal, the inconsistency of not achieving goals recur. You don't try to visualize, or rather check what is causing this inconsistency. It means you haven't taken any you are not accountable for your actions. You are lying to yourself. But each time that you try to look at what is causing the inconsistencies, it means that you are accountable.
Okay. Accountability is very difficult. I'm telling you from personal experience, because again, we always like to protect ourselves from that emotional pain. Nobody likes to be called out. We don't like to call ourselves out. Why do you think it is difficult, even for high performance? You find out people that are high performing, but still they find it difficult to be accountable. Why do you think it's difficult? Does it have to do with the ego? Does it have to do with fear? Does it have to do with low self-esteem? What exactly makes it difficult for even high performance?
When it comes to high achievers, yes, accountability is a difficult aspect to keep up with. And when it comes to high achievers, I can say it's more difficult in that level, because when you are beginning, experience is a good teacher. You learn from those actions that you are taking, where you are going wrong and all that. But once you become a high achiever, you've already understood how to achieve that goal. Your ego knows that I can do this. Even if I lose everything today, I'll be able to start over again. Now for high achievers, it becomes difficult to be accountable because nothing is going wrong in your life. Each and everything is happening the way it should be. You are achieving those targets, you're building your team so well, and whenever nothing is going wrong with that ego, you won't be able to accept challenges. And maybe people that you are together with, your association, are not challenging you. They know that you are a high performer. You are achieving results. The results is evidence. It becomes difficult because your ego is there. You are not accepting any challenge from anyone. You are not ready to grow, and you have created that comfort zone that you are not ready to outgrow it. So the same patterns repeat themselves. The same patterns that you had outgrown in the early stages repeat themselves again when you become a high achiever.
Do you think it has, just like you said, the habit you exhibit at the beginning when you're starting off comes back when you get to become a high achiever, and also that ego stops you from being accountable? Can that actually bring someone down? Because again, like you said, I've already succeeded, I have the money, I have the success, I have all of this. Can that lack of accountability reverse the role in a way that person will just find themselves starting from point zero?
Yes, it can. It can, because at that point you are not ready to grow anymore. It's more of like you've reached where you wanted to be. And I'll say, let's say you have a goal to build 500 people, to have 500 people in your team, and then in that particular time frame you achieve the same. It tends to bring that sense of identity. You are telling yourself, I did it. I don't think you will be in a position where you want to think outside the box, because from 500 I guess you have to move to 1,000. But since you the same thing I was saying earlier, you are in that comfort zone, you are not ready to outgrow what you are at the moment, and you'll find yourself maybe team members, rather, since there's no growth anymore, you've achieved whatever you wanted to achieve. People in your team maybe may start not feeling that this is a productive place. The environment is not challenging us to grow. And you'll find yourself, you lose other people. Pride comes before a fall. And then if you're not ready to be challenged, or rather to accept other opinions from other people, you can find yourself losing all that you had built, and it took you time to build the same. So yes, it can bring somebody down.
Okay, it does have the ability to bring someone down. Is it just in a professional setting, or does it also affect you on a personal level?
Yes, it does. It does, especially, and for me, I love talking about mental health and accountability. If you don't understand how to regulate your nervous system, it will affect you in a big way. Because the same way, yes, you've grown to a certain level, you are a high performer, and then there's nothing that is happening. You don't realize, you don't see that growth. I can say other people it tends to bring that anxiety. Nothing is happening in my life, and let's say when it brings you down again to zero, like you had not built anything before, you find people having mental health issues, people becoming anxious, and by the time they outgrow that and create that momentum again on how to learn to build again, it takes some time, and it takes a toll on a lot of people.
So it's more like the person is stuck in a loop. So you get to the point, you come back to the starting point, you get to the point, you come back to the starting point. Of course, yes, it's going to have that impact on the mental health, and also it can impact how people perform generally.
Yes.
This is a topic that I really love, personally love, because I would say the things I love the most to work with people is not even how well they are able to perform, is how accountable to are to themselves. Because we work with people, and then you see people lying to themselves. You know they are lying to themselves. They know they are lying to themselves, but they literally don't care. Or you are put in a team to work with a group of people, and then those people are not being accountable for the task that they've been assigned to. You have to be the one to shoulder everything. It's quite frustrating. So yes, there are going to be people listening to this podcast, and they'll be in a team with people who don't have that accountability. The first thing we'll look at is, I want us to look at two things. How do we help that person to realize that they are not having that accountability that is needed? That's the first thing. And two, if it doesn't work, how do we work with people who lack that accountability? How do we work productively? Because we don't want them to have that impact on us, because like you said earlier, our environments also impact us. So the first thing is, how do we help them to realize that they lack accountability, and how do we help them to get that accountability?
How we help them realize that they lack accountability is, of course, if you don't point out a problem that a person is going through, they won't be able to realize they are having the same problem. So for me, what I'll use myself as an example. Let's say I have a team member in my team who is not accountable. Each time we have tasks to do, they don't see through to what they're supposed to do. So of course you have to point out to them that you were assigned task A, this and this, and you haven't done it. Talk with the person to understand where is the problem, if they are facing any challenges, if they have questions on the same. So it's rather coming down to why they are not doing their task. What is the cause of all this, the problem they are facing? Once you understand the problem, is now how you speak together to come up with a solution on the same. Because you can't say that as a leader you have to come up with solutions for each and every person in your team, because how we are wired, how we think, how we perceive things is different from person to person. That's why accountability as well is different from person to person. So it's better off to come up with that the solution to the problem the person is facing by them initiating what they think will work for them. Maybe it's more of time. They need more time on the same. They need more materials on the same, but it's more of learning the problem and finding the solution together.
You talked about how a leader would be able to make his team or her team to realize that a team member, okay, look, you are not being accountable to this task. What if in a case where the two individuals are people of the same position or the same status? Let's say, for example, you have the leaders of a particular organization have been assigned to do a specific task. That person is not someone that you are leading. That person is someone that you both have the same position. You are both leaders. And the person in that case lacks accountability, just like you said, it could be because of their ego and so forth. How do you help that person to see that, look, be accountable?
For me, I can say it's better off, since of course when we have to do something, there are particular tasks in each and every, or rather micro tasks in each and every activity that we have to do. So for me, I'll rather delegate different tasks to different people, so that each and every person know what they need to do, and I guess that will increase how people become accountable by delegating. But behind my mind, when I know that we are doing the same task with Mohammed, and I know Mohammed maybe is good at time management, is good at following through, I'll tend to, I don't want to say lazy, I tend to step back and let you do the task, right? But when I know what I have to do is my own responsibility, no one is there to help me out, of course I'll tend to focus on it.
To delegation person's strengths, because it's easier for them to be accountable towards something that they are strong and good at, as opposed to something that they are not good at. So what's the entry point? We have talked about accountability, and I like the fact that you segregated it into two parts. There's being accountable to yourself, that's not lying to yourself. Before someone has to tell you are supposed to do this, you are not supposed to have done this, this is the aspect you're supposed to look at. You should have been able to tell yourself all of those things, and also being accountable to someone else. And we've talked about the two different aspects of that, which is as a leader, being accountable to your team, that's one aspect, and also as a mentee, being accountable to your mentor. And we've talked about that. Someone who is listening will be like, okay, I understand, and I see some of these things in my attitude. What is the entry point? What's the first or the earliest step that this person can take to start being more accountable?
Okay, so yes, you've introduced the aspect attitude, and attitude is what steers us, is the main aspect to achieve success. It's more connected with the mindset. So for a person to be able to start being accountable is more of, you remember I was talking about being able to realize the patterns that is happening around you. You understand whenever we are given a task, right? We have activities that we do, and we tend to know that activity A will lead me to activity B. So for me, it's more of breaking down your tasks into manageable activities. So instead of focusing on the whole thing, it's better if I break them down into manageable activities that I can take shorter time to be able to complete. So I can say also time blocking. Time blocking is another aspect. If you get distracted easily, I can say you won't be able to work on long hours, or maybe 1 hour. You can't work for 1 hour fully and give it your all. So it's better if you block time, break down those activities to fit maybe 25 minutes, then after 25 minutes you take a break. I think that can bring you being accountable to your activity.
It goes back to self-realization. You have to know yourself. You have to know, okay, because you said breaking it down into smaller tasks. Small task for person A could be a big task for person B. But for you to be able to know that that's something that you have to know a lot about yourself. Now, in the topic of being accountable, what is the one thing that you believe that everyone should understand for them to know that, yes, this is something that is very important? Because for us to be able to take action in something, we need to see the relevance. As human beings, we are driven by either the fear of loss or the hope to gain something. The fear of loss is much more than the hope to gain something. That you need to talk about the pain of not doing something. Now, a lot of us, if we don't understand the importance of accountability, we're like, okay, it's just one of those things I'm getting by. What do people need to understand about the concept of accountability for them to see how serious it is in both our personal lives and also our professional lives?
We should know that accountability is important, like you're saying, to achieve success, and each and everything that we do has consequences. And most of the time we assume that the biggest cost of accountability maybe is failure, but rather it is distortion. What I can say is if you are not accountable to yourself, it has consequences, like I said earlier, and it will lead to how you view yourself. If each and every time the same thing happens, you are not accountable, you are inconsistent, you will tend to view yourself in another way. You don't see yourself that it lowers self-esteem in some people. At the same time, we start believing in our own narrative. We have that mindset that, or rather that view of ourselves that we know each and everything, while we really don't know. We don't accept guidance from anyone, since we are talking about high performers. So they come into that point where they don't accept guidance from anyone, or rather another person's point of view, since nothing is falling apart in where they are. Us understanding that it is a very important aspect is where now you know that if I'm not accountable, growth will not happen where I am. You will stay in that level for a very long time, and you find that now people stay in that plateau for a very long time, and growth is really minimal, that you are not able to see it. And you find that maybe you're in that plateau for a while, then you achieve a slight success, which creates a small curve, then back again to the plateau. So for me, accountability is very important, because it will determine for you to understand whether you are growing.
So accountability can be a mirror for us to know whether we are growing or not. I do like that concept. And before we wrap up, we've talked about a lot about accountability. For anyone who is listening, for those who are listening, what's the one thing that you would like them to take away from the topic of accountability? If they were to forget everything from this conversation, what's the one thing that you want them to not forget?
You mentioned that accountability is a mirror. Actually, yes, it is, because you get through accountability is where you get a chance to reflect on your activities, or rather what leads to success in yourself. So most people, what I know is that most people don't struggle with accountability because they are lazy. They struggle because they're trying to protect something. We were talking about mental health and the physiological aspect. The two go together. And for you to be able to say, I am accountable, it means that you are self-aware of what is happening in your environment, at the same time what is happening within. you are able to stop lying to yourself and take responsibility of each and every action that you do. So what I can tell, or rather say to the people who are listening, is that the real shift is not needing to be right about yourself. It's not about the perfectionism. It's all about being aware and rather being able to realize those patterns that are happening around you, or rather being able to know the habits that you need to outgrow so that you can see the progress or achieve that success.
Thank you very much for touching upon that. And I remember there was a time that I was placed in a specific team to carry out a specific task, and we know that all of us in the team are supposed to contribute in that. And whenever there's a few group of people that whenever you allocate certain tasks to them, they do show up. They tell you that they have other things, and it gets quite frustrating. It gets really, really frustrating when you work with in an environment with people who lack that accountability. And just like you said, one of the ways for us to look at how well we are growing internally was, like you said, accountability is not a skill. It's through accountability. It's more like a mirror to us. Thank you very much for shedding light on this specific topic. And that would be all for today's episode for Talk with Partners. I would see you in the next one.
Thank you for having me.